How's everybody doing? You know me, I'm Luis Nasser, and right here with me is the man in the desert, none other than the great Andy Tillotson, with whom I've been doing every Sonos record since, Winter Solstice.
Hello.
And also he's the main guy behind Mike Could, and he has a great studio out there, and he's one of my best friends. So the reason we're here is because I would like most of the Sonos fans who don't know him to get to know him, and also for you guys to hear Andy's take on Whiteout and why we decided to do something that could potentially be so disastrously unpopular as it has proven to be in some cases. So without further ado, this is Andy, and I'm just going to start asking some questions, and hopefully, we can get his point of view on the album. You all know what I think because I scrolled it on the booklet. Do you agree that this record took a long time in the making and it was never clear it was ever going to see the light of day?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. We started it. You have to tell me, when did we actually start it? It was like 2020 or 2018 or something. I don't know. We had like a couple of things rumbling back as early as 2018 or something like that. I didn't think it was ever going to see the light of day. I thought it was just like, okay, yeah, Whiteout is there. It was one of these things that I would like poke around with, and you would poke around with, and we would trade things back and forth. But yeah, it was a long time coming, for sure.
All right, and I guess all odds, after all the problems we had finishing Sky Full of Ghosts, we actually used our time to finish this. Came out, and it is personally a record that I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I like the way it turned out.
I think it's without any attempt at being modest. I think we did a really good job, and I think, however, that the record is misunderstood by some people. So my position, and I want to hear your position, since we're both the creators, but we're different humans, so we think different. My position is that rather than being a record that tells people who to vote for or who not to, it's a record that is a plea for people to not support fascism, even if it's coated inside a Happy Meal and the voice of someone that seems familiar and that can make you feel good about your own particular brand of prejudice. It's just something that people don't seem to talk about in the States very much, and I really wanted to talk about it. But from your perspective, what did you think about when I presented the sketch of some of these songs and when I was trying to get the ball going?
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's off and on over the last, 8 years, I think both of us have, all of us, right? I mean, it's not, I think no matter who you are sort of politically aligned with or what your thoughts are on anything, there's a certain amount of sort of hopelessness about the situation we find ourselves in, right? So it's like, the hyperpolarization. I mean, the polarization is one thing. I mean, it's that there, to an extent that's natural, right? You're going to have people who have different views, and that's okay. But what gets me is just the extent to which certain people and a lot of people in power are just willing to exploit that and really just milk it. And so it's just, I've had this sense of kind of off and on despair just looking at what things are going on, and so this is kind of just. This was kind of for me just a way to scream into the void a little bit, right? And just say, sort of project that feeling of hopelessness. But also, I mean, at its core, at the end of the day, also it's just good music that I like, right? And I like creating, and that itself is also a catharsis too. So I mean, it served a dual purpose, I guess, in that regard for me.
Okay. Now, people may not know this about you, but you spend a lot of time every year in Germany because you also have a property there. You go there with your family.
Yep.
And as we have been trying to push the record and getting more people involved in listening to it and having a conversation with us and just making people aware of what it is and also what it isn't. Um, I have found that a country that has had a lot of pushback has been Germany.
Interesting.
So, what would you say to the German audiences? You obviously have a much better feel for them than I do, since I've only been there once. What would you say to the or twice? Yeah, I've been there twice. What would you say to the Germans who are afraid of controversy, or who don't think that it's their place to weigh in on this particular topic of fascism,
Yeah,
even
so
if it's
that
flag?
okay, so that's interesting. So it's there. You feel like the reason Germans aren't getting into it necessarily is because they don't feel like it's their place to comment on what's going on in the States. Is that what you're saying?
Some of them have explicitly made that remark. Others
Hmm.
have just been very visceral and said, "I don't want to have anything to do with this." And
Yeah.
how would you address them? How would you try to entice them to suppress that initial reaction?
I mean, I think Germans would have lots of really insightful and important things to say about fascism, not because they need to feel guilty about it or anything, right? I mean, that's but more just because that they've lived through it more recently um, than certainly the U.S. has, and I think they have a lot of insight. But I don't know if it's just just I would say put it on, try to try to enjoy it and listen to the music. If you don't like the yeah, I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with this, but I guess one of the things that um, comes to mind. I mean, maybe if the Germans are feeling hesitant or self-conscious or something like that. I remember a poll that was done. I think it was done by the Swabian Times. Um, it was it the poll was essentially they were asking a whole bunch of Germans how they thought the rest of the world viewed Germans. uh, and then
Okay.
they also asked a bunch of people from around the world, from others, I think specifically other countries in Europe, but how they viewed Germans. And the disparity was huge. Germans had a serious low confidence. Their prediction of how others viewed them was much lower than the way actually other Europeans viewed the Germans, which I thought was kind of, I mean, maybe there's a self-consciousness or a lack of surety in the way a lack of certainty in how the rest of the world is viewing them that makes them hesitant to makes them reluctant to sort of get involved. But I think it's worth remembering
So,
that.
how can we encourage our German friends and other people in Europe to listen to this record? What would you suggest? Well, so they can not feel that we're just pummeling them with Weltschmerz and all this stuff. Like, really, just we're basically trying to, at its heart, for me at least, and I don't know if you agree, for me, which is not typical for Sona Sombra, but it is a hopeful message. It's basically
Yeah.
saying all is not lost. We decide what happens, right?
Yeah.
So, what would you do? You think we could somehow convince these guys to give it a shot without so much, self introspection and so much fear?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not. And if not, that's okay. But at the same time, we want to know what you think, right? We want to
Yeah,
hear from you. We want your yeah. We
and we
appreciate
only
your
really
opinion.
want to know what you think if you've heard it.
Yeah.
None of you imagine what it is, but if you actually heard it, and
Yeah.
then you tell us what you think of it. So, well, look, there is an election coming up in a couple of days here in the USA. We understand that people across the pond, as they say here, don't participate, but the outcome does affect them. Everybody in the world is affected.
Yep.
So I would just, do you think it's fair to say that people should feel they have a little bit more agency in this? Because
when you say people, do you mean the people who are voting or the people abroad?
people who are voting definitely need to vote, but what I'm saying is the people who are not here should have a sense of urgency as well. And if nothing else, a conversation, music can be, as you said, cathartic. It can bring people together. It can be helpful. And I that's really all I want. I want people to get the album and talk to us. And if they're frustrated, I want them to share that frustration. Would you be willing to listen to their frustration? I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yeah.
So what can we say as a final invitation to people in Europe to try Whiteout? What would be if you had to speak about the strengths of the album, what would you say?
Well, from a musical perspective, and I mean, for me, this album, you know, it was, for me, it was a long journey in terms of production, learning. So I did a lot of research, and I spent a lot of time, you know, trying to school myself on production techniques, and I'm not sure if that really shines through on the record, but I like to think it does. And so for me,
Sure.
I think the way the album sort of shimmers, and the way, for example, just, you know, every time Pete Laramie's guitar solo comes in on 21st Century, it's just like, yes. I mean, and that was a joy to start, and for all of the guest musicians who have been on the record, it was just a joy to try and figure out, okay, so how do I make this part sound good? And so from a personal perspective, I'm proud of that, and I hope, if nothing else, that people can enjoy that, enjoy listening to these great musicians playing really cool parts. And if you
you to be on the other side, like in the past, people may not know this, but Steve Katikas, who performed on this record, helped us by recording lots of drums in previous Sonos records. And now it was his turn to be on the other side of the chopping block, so to speak,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
and it was up to us to shape his sound and to go as far as to edit or truncate or whatever. And Steve is a good friend of both of us, and a very talented guy in his own right. What was that like for you, working on Steve's tracks instead of the reverse?
I mean, I try not to think too hard about what people are going to say when they hear their own parts coming back to them after having gone through the processing business. You know, Steve Royce, our flutist, used to always call it the cutting room floor, right? Like, he just is like, well, I didn't hear much of what I delivered. It must have ended up on the cutting room floor, right? So, I mean, yeah, so that happens. And I try not to think too hard about whether or not the other person's going to be offended or upset with what I've done with their part. But at least in Steve's case, I can say that very little required. Like, as far as I recall, there was very little that really needed to be done. We just had to make it sound. We just had to get the production and you know tweak the production and make it sound good. I mean, he wrote. I mean, he played some great parts. I think I chopped a few things, but I don't think he was offended. But it was fun. It was fun anyway. That part is always fun. Like, once you have actually music laid down, you know, playing with it and making it sound good, that really for me is the fun part.
And that is basically also the bottom line. The record, in spite of its somber origin and subject matter, is actually fun. And I hope that people will hear it. Hope people will write us. I hope people lose the fear, and we should start talking, because, you know, the worst that can happen is for everybody to remain quiet, because, as we've been saying for 11 years, silence kills. Silence fucking kills. So it's important to speak. It's important to say what we have in our mind, and it's important, I think, to focus on the similarities that we have instead of the differences, which is what I hope listening to this album can highlight. That we're all basically humans on the same planet, and we have to figure this out before we become extinguished.
And people that ostensibly hate one another online would probably be good friends in real life, right? I mean, like
Exactly.
that's part of the silent part. I mean, if anything, it's being amplified by our online lives.
Yes, you can't it's not as easy to unfriend someone face to face,
That's right.
right? So it's important to remember that we're all people, that we should be listening to each other, and that's why we're making these videos. It's our way of saying to people, please come and listen to the album, please come and talk to us, and whatever happens is going to happen. We're not naive enough to think a record is going to change the outcome of an election. This is just an artistic expression of our frustration and our best hopes, and we hope that people will react accordingly and no longer have a prejudice against the album. So we're probably going to do a few more of these in the future, talking about individual tracks, things that are highlighted, and things that we're both proud of that we haven't done in other records. But for now, this has been Nasser and Dr. Tillotson. Andy. All right.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Salam.